that fateful day, I didn't get laid, and furthermore, I left before it all began. Now, I'm not easy, but I can be made. And I'm writing a new book called Fuck Suck on Rio Grande. If you want to get in on it, I'll give you my address, you know. But look at this, you know, that's fine. Huh? You like that? $2.80 and it's yours. All it amounts to is I got some pretty hard vibes that day in the park, man. And I had to go. I had my chick and her little sister there. We had a bad thing. Fuck the airplane. We had a bad thing from the word go, man. And it's like, I had a hard time earlier. I left before anything had happened. I wish I hadn't now, because as far as I'm concerned, the Dallas police force sucks. Because I've been hassled, manhandled, and treated wrong ever since then. Because one lousy pig decided he wanted to treat me wrong, man. Because I'm one of them god-darn long-haired hippies. By God, you dig. That's why I cut my hair. I wear me a hat, and I'm growing my hair long again to cover up my red neck. You dig. Because if I ain't got a red neck, I can't live in Texas. Besides that, there's more dope here than there is most other places. You know? And I dig it, man. Now, I'm not an addict, man, but, you know, I can take it or leave it. Leave it every chance I get. Mostly I take it. No, I've been treated wrong. I'm clean. I ain't got no marks. And I even quit smoking weed, man. All I want to do is live and be a free fucking American. And why can't they let us do that? All we want to do is come out in the park on a Sunday and treat everybody else like we want to be treated and be free human beings. You know, hey, look, you know, I got a, woo, look at that, you know, I got one sitting right there that, that's Big Mamu. And I don't ask for nothing in return. I ask to work hard. I work construction hard every day. I just want to...
I am Ed Polk. I'm a lawyer in Dallas. And I've known Stoney Burns since sometime in the spring of 1967. I've been on the periphery of several legal matters and directly involved in several legal matters which have affected Stoney and his operation of a newspaper called Dallas Notes, and which also involved Stoney personally. The first incident that I recall was of a rather bizarre nature. Sometime in fall of 1968, as I recall, I was at a meeting of the, strangely enough, of the Dallas chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. Was called out of that meeting and advised that Stoney was in the Dallas County Jail, having been charged with possession of narcotics, tampering with United States mails, and possession of obscene material. I arrived at the jail 20 minutes or so later, was able to secure his release, and later found that the Dallas police had gone into his house and taken literally all the equipment necessary to produce the newspaper, including typewriters, pencils, pens, scrap paper, photographs, just a sweeping sort of search. This is the case which later resulted in the holding as being unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, or by a three-judge court here, the Texas obscenity laws. The newspapers reported the arrest and discussed it in terms of the largest haul of smut in the city of Dallas. It was some 2 tons, as I recall. They failed to indicate that that smut included lamps, typewriters, chairs, just unbelievable kind of things seized by the police and held in evidence until they were ordered by the court to return them. Unfortunately, all the typewriters were broken when they were returned.
Yeah, I was at the park last year when they had the Massacre here, so to speak, and I saw quite a bit of what happened, and I think it was handled rather poorly on the part of the authorities. I was standing right across the street over there on that little rise, not too far from Stoney, whom I didn't know at the time, and I heard him yelling, and I heard a lot of people yelling, and I was aware of a beer can that was thrown by a cop up the hill at him, and next thing I knew, they were charging up through the crowd, running after him right up to the top of that grassy area up there, and I followed, and just as I got up to where about 3 or 4 policemen had him down, and a crowd had been gathering, somebody came flying back into my arms, and he had gotten hit in the face with something, a bottle or a club, I don't know what. And he was breathing pretty heavily, so at that point, myself and about 4 or 5 other people picked him up and carried him down into the street to try and get him some medical attention. And that was the last I was aware of Stoney or anything that had happened to him. Last thing I remember was seeing him down on the ground with 3 or 4 policemen getting him together, so to speak. All in all, it was handled pretty poorly, I'd say. I got here just as it was getting ready to start, and I saw it happen. I saw how it could have been avoided many times if cooler heads had prevailed. There was fault on both sides as far as rocks and bottles being thrown. I just hope I don't see another massacre here in this park. It's too nice a park.
There were several incidents similar to the one I've described, in which the police just made sweeping searches and seized all the equipment necessary to put out the newspaper. It soon became obvious. It was immediately obvious, but it soon became obvious to everyone that this was a political harassment on the part of the local officials in an attempt to stop publication of the newspaper. Following these kind of searches, once they were declared, and seizures of the property, once they were declared unlawful by the court, the authorities here began a new tack in that they would get an injunction against the sale and distribution of a certain issue of the paper. The first that I recall resulted in an injunction against the distribution of the paper as long as a certain cartoon continued to appear in the paper. The judge ordered the sheriff to go out to the offices of the newspaper and to rip out that particular cartoon. And it was really humorous to actually see those deputy sheriffs out there going through those copies of the newspapers, ripping out this cartoon, which was totally innocuous.
Well, I was sitting up on top of the hill, and it was really a beautiful day. Everybody was sitting around listening to music, and all of a sudden it sounded like every policeman in Dallas was coming to Lee Park. And I looked down by the creek, and it seems everybody was running down there, just going crazy. And all these policemen were coming, and all the people were running down there. And it's like one of those things you can't believe when you see it happening. It's just so crazy, so far out. And it took me a while to get myself together. I kind of wandered down there, and I was standing back in the back watching it, and all of a sudden, these two policemen came running out of the group, and they ran up and grabbed this guy next to me and hauled him back down there. Before I didn't even know who it was. I thought maybe they'd seen him throwing a beer bottle or something, but then all of a sudden everybody starts saying, "They got Stoney, they got Stoney."
Grabs the other one by the shoulders, you know, like this, and he points up straight at me and says, "There's one we want, let's get him." And they came charging up the hill, and I put up my hands because, you know, I knew who they were after. There was no mistake about that. And I said, you know, I'll go peacefully, but, you know, I don't know what they did to me, but I ended up down on the ground trying to breathe because they were, like, choking me. And I don't know how many there were. There was at least two. I got a picture that someone took by the time we reached the bottom of the rise, and there was like 7 cops on me. This was the bus. Originally they had me booked for suspicion of a misdemeanor, and later they changed it to a felony when they found out, you know, who they had.
But didn't they know who they had?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to trial?
It took about 10 months, and the second trial was, I guess, 14 months after the fact.
Why did you have a second trial?
It ended in a mistrial. The jury was hung over guilt and innocence. They couldn't reach a verdict.
Is this unusual to pursue a trial after it's become hung? Don't they usually just drop the trial?
Well, if I was Bobby Seale, they would pursue it, you know. But since I'm Stoney Burrs and this is Dallas County, they just keep on trying until they win.
What is your opinion about the Panthers that were acquitted recently? Was this justice or was this a quirk of fate?
I don't know. That whole case is so ridiculous to begin with. That reminded me of the Chicago 7 conspiracy. You know, they're going to blow up Woolworths and the Statue of Liberty. That just doesn't make sense. I don't see how anyone could believe that. The same way with the Chicago conspiracy. They chose the leaders of about, you know, 6 different factions in the movement, and they put all those guys together on a conspiracy. Dave Dillinger, America's leading pacifist, and, you know, he's conspiring with Bobby Seale, the Black Panther. That doesn't make sense. And then they're both supposed to be conspiring with Abby Hoffman, the Yippie. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of. That's as ridiculous as blowing up the Statue of Liberty and Woolworths.
Do people really believe that these conspiracies are conspiracies?
A lot of people do. A lot of people actually believe this. You know, of course, they believe in an international communist conspiracy.
You said your prosecutor was trying to incite the jury by presuming that this Lee Park incident would cause outside agitators to infiltrate into the sacred Smoke City limits. Berkeley, people from Berkeley, did he pursue this throughout the trial, this paranoia of...
Well, the thing is, whenever he got real paranoid and put a lot of stuff into the record, you know, we'd object. We had so many objections, and he'd keep rephrasing things.
Do you feel that Dallas is more paranoid, more insane than other cities in this area?
Yeah, Dallas is the city of instant paranoia. Dallas is completely different. First of all, there's no purpose for Dallas being here. You know, like Fort Worth, is a cow town. You know, they have the stockyards. Houston is a seaport, right? Most other cities, El Paso's a pass through the mountains. All other cities have a purpose for being. Dallas doesn't have any purpose. It's not an oil city. There's not oil near here. There's not, you know, cotton or anything. It's strictly built on a facade, on
money.
Banking, on money, on banking, on real estate, on insurance, on things that are intangible. They have all those big buildings down there that they do nothing in those buildings to push paper from one room to another. And they've got these big facades built on their buildings, like there's skyscrapers down there. You know, there's no reason for those skyscrapers in the middle of the prairie, except it's a facade. And when anyone starts questioning that facade and questioning the realities behind it, they get so scared and so irrational that things happen. You know, they need a scapegoat. They have to blame it on someone because of their own paranoia.
Does this affect the underground? Is the underground more paranoid here as well?
Yeah, they're paranoid because of repression is probably worse here than most other places.
Do you think you could get a fair trial if you presented the facts as you perceive them to the jury?
No, I don't think you can get a fair trial in Dallas. I don't think you can get a fair trial in America. But I think that if it was explained to the jury and to the people, at least they would understand what was going on. They would even understand that if it's a farce, it ought to be presented as a farce. Because, you know, it can't happen any worse. The worst that can happen is, you know...
Convicted again.
Yeah, then I'm convicted. And I was already convicted.
Was this considered as an alternative, a different style of presenting your case? Did you ever have much to say about what was to be done? What presentation was
yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm pissed off at myself. Because I let it be done this way. And I thought that, you know, a jury would look at the facts and they'd, you know, find me not guilty. No matter what style the case is presented, the facts are going to be the same. And the fact situation is on my side. They just didn't want to listen to the facts.
Do you believe there were any members of the jury that were in your favor?
Yeah. When they have a panel out there, both the defense and the prosecution are allowed to strike 10, you know, for any reason at all. It's called voir dire. And the state spent 8 of their strikes just getting rid of the Negroes and the Jews, because they don't want these people on a jury, because these people can see how police can go in and beat up people. They do it in black neighborhoods all the time. They do it in Chicano neighborhoods all the time. And no one's been more persecuted than the Jews. So these people would be sympathetic to, you know, our side of the story, so the state just struck them just because of the color of their skin.
No hippies?
Well, we did get a couple of guys on the jury that had slightly longish hair, but my God, everyone's got long hair these days. The jury foreman was an SMU student. He's also a former jailer, you know, and on the panel, H.L. Hunt's daughter was on the panel, June Hunt, and we struck her just because of her own man, you know. I mean, she would probably, H.L. would probably disinherit her if she found me not guilty.
Yes.
So,
well, you're working now for...
There was a cop on the panel, too. We struck him.
What were the other occupations?
Oh, there was a postal worker and a cement contractor and, you know, a couple salesmen and an electronics technician, you know, it's just a
typical downside?
Yeah. It was all white, all middle class.
Middle age range? What was the age range?
Yeah, middle-aged to fairly young.
You were recently acquitted of pornography charges before the United States Supreme Court. Can you tell us something about that case?
Well, it wasn't really in front of the Supreme Court. The three-judge federal panel ruled the pornography laws unconstitutional here in Dallas. It went to the Supreme Court, and actually they ruled that we should have exhausted all the state court remedies first. But in the meantime, the state decided the hassle wasn't worth it, and they just gave up. They knew it was unconstitutional. It's just a matter of going through all these judicial procedures. So they dropped charges, you know, saved face there.
What was this case? How did these charges in this case develop?
These charges stemmed out of two raids on the notes office, one in October of '68, and the other one in November, 2 weeks later. The reason there were two separate charges was that by Texas statute, the first offense is a misdemeanor and the second one was a felony. Dig it? So they wanted felony charges against me, so I was raided twice on two separate occasions. The first time, the newspapers said that they took 2 tons of smut. What they took was all the old copies of notes, all the copies of all our exchange papers, drawing boards, typewriters, all the production equipment, clothes, posters, furniture, just everything they could cart off. People would come up to me on the streets afterwards and say, hey, you know, there's 2 tons of smut we read about, you know, what was that? And I said, oh, yeah, we had a life-size statue of Raphael Welch and a German Shepherd, you know, because the charges were so ridiculous. They came in on a search warrant saying that, you know, we had sold a paper and it showed on the cover a man caressing the nude breast of a female, right? And this was the whole basis of the charge. The actual picture in question was a still from a motion picture, and we had done this story on the motion picture business in Dallas, which Dallas is one of the top 3 movie centers, but it's mostly like sexploitation films and, you know, pornographic films. Not mostly, but a lot. Yeah, maybe mostly, I don't know. And we did a story about this. Now, see, Dallas likes it known that it's a big movie center, but they don't like it known it's a big movie center for dirty movies, you know. So this still that played, that was displayed on movie theaters downtown, right on the sidewalk, on Elm Street, that's okay, but, you know, if we publish the picture, you know, that's a no-no and that's pornography. People said, yeah, but that's, you know, that's no stronger than anything Playboy runs. And I'd say something like, yeah, but Playboy didn't get caught. And therein lies the rub. Why didn't Playboy get caught? Well, it's kind of obvious that it was a political case. They wanted to close us down because we were exposing the local shenanigans, you know, local corruption. They didn't give a shit about Playboy. They were after us.
Yeah. Did you get back the things that were taken?
Yeah, we finally did, but, you know, this required going to the federal courts and getting injunctions for them to give back typewriters and personal belongings and clothes and stuff like this. We actually had to go to federal court to get this stuff back. In a lower court, it was declared unconstitutional, the law. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and finally the state court hassled with it, and they dropped charges.
Did they do this to put you out of business? Did they use this charge to try to put the newspaper out of business?
They're out of town.
Okay. When he tells you to stop, you better tell me to
well,
stop.
I just stopped.
Whether you're just blanking out.
I didn't know whether they still had time. He was going like this.
Was this pornography bust an attempt to put the newspaper out of business?
Yeah, it was. After the first one, we had to borrow equipment even to publish another one. And then as soon as we published another one, it busted us again. I was quite obviously an attempt to put us out of business, hassle us to death. Fortunately, it didn't work, and it never does. We came back stronger than ever, and when this, same technique has been tried other places. Other newspapers came back stronger than ever. And
did the straight press support you during this case?
No.
On the basis of freedom of the press?
No. They should have. This, again, is no different than a lot of other places that they've tried to close down the local underground press for pornographic reasons. And every time they fail, but every other time, usually the straight press will come to the aid of the underground press, because they realize that an attack on one newspaper, no matter what it is an attack on all. That freedom of the press knows no bounds. It includes everybody.
How did you get into the newspaper business?
Summer of '67, I had seen Notes from the Underground, as it was called then. It was published by Doug Baker and some people out at SMU. It was a whole new concept that I'd never seen before, and I really dug the idea behind it. So I called Doug and complimented him on the paper, asked if I could do anything. First thing I ever did, I redesigned their masthead. And then when summer came, most of the staff went home, for summer vacation. Doug called me and asked if I wanted to help him publish it during the summer. And I said, yeah. And did. Then when fall came, Doug had to quit the paper and move out of town for personal reasons, and I became editor in the fall of '67.
What was the whole new concept that you're referring to? Can you
well, it was
elaborate
the thing.
on that?
It wasn't professional journalists putting out a product. It was people that actually believed in something writing about that subject.
And it was different from the daily campus.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a reflection of fairly conformist views of the students. It was a more of a political organ at the time.
Yeah, well, it was a more truthful publication. I mean, it was more subjective because, our reporters were actually participants. And for Dallas at that time, it was something, brand new.
What do you think of the alternate media situation in Dallas right now?
I think when you talk about the Dallas underground scene, you're actually talking about two newspapers, Hookah and Dallas News. Hookah seems more oriented toward, a dope hippie type thing, and News is perhaps overly sober. But it's 2 points of view. I wish the two papers were even more different than they are. But
what differences would you like to see expanded?
Well, Hookah for a while was doing more arty stuff, and I think they were going more in the direction of the Chicago Sea, while News was going toward more like maybe Detroit's Fifth Estate, a more newspaper type of thing.
What about the radio station, the underground radio stations? What is your opinion about the situation?
Well, then again, you're talking about K-News and KFAD. KFAD seems to be doing a better job. They're probably more into the community, but they don't have much power. And a lot of the good things they try to do get vetoed by the ownership, which is still pretty conservative. The people working there are working almost as if they were collective. They're a real tight unit. K-News, on the other hand, is a McClendon station. And McClendon, of course, knows where the money is, and he wants some of that action. So, he's even sold his top 40 station now, and the only station he's keeping is K-News. I think this says something about where his head's at and the value of this type of market. It's growing every day.
Well, what is your opinion of the straight media, the dailies in Dallas?
Oh, man, they suck. They're absolutely, this is the worst city I've ever seen in the quality of the newspapers. There's so much distortion and so much misreporting and so much stuff that doesn't even get in the newspaper. That it's really not even worth talking about. They're doing such a mediocre job.
Do you accept your role as a movement leader that the straight media has foisted upon you because of their sensationalized stories in regard to your public activities?
No. I've never really thought of myself as a leader. I'm not a very good leader. I'm not a very good public speaker. I'm really not even that good a writer. I'm a fairly good editor, a fairly good production person. But I think this is erroneous, putting me up as a leader. I don't remember what the rest of the sentence was.
Yeah. Did you cut your hair in order to help your trial?
No, actually, I'm going through my Bob Dylan period.
Yes, of course.
I found that through the years, he's preceded me by sometimes even weeks. Actually, I look more like Polly Bergen, I think, with my hair this way. Yeah, it's a cop-out to some extent. Like I said before, you have to lie in order to stay out of jail. You have to let them think that, you know, you're shaping up. Therefore, I don't have a beard anymore. I have shorter hair. Of course, I vowed last summer that I wouldn't go through another summer with long hair anyway. It becomes a hassle. And I like it better this way. With 6 of one and a half a dozen of the other.
Okay, Mickey, cut it off if you want to. This is all the film.
If we can make it X-rated and say a lot of cuss words.
You started a venture in Austin, Lone Star Dispatch. What broke that up? Is it still publishing now?
No, I don't think it is. I just got rapidly disenchanted with it. Austin is really a nice place to live, and I really dug it down there. Eventually, I'd like to settle down there. But the people working on the paper down there were students, and when you're in a student environment in the so-called ivory tower, it's easy to rap about exploitation and capitalism and racism without ever having to confront the monster. Here in the big city, you know, where you got industry and you got, you know, a large working class and a large black population, the problems of racism and violence really come home more firsthand. And after confronting these things on a first-hand thing, I just couldn't, you know, rap about them on such an ideological level. I think most college students are really actually out of touch with what's really happening. So anyway, I got rapidly disenchanted and just split.
How did you get into the newspaper business?
Well, back in spring of '67, I was talking to some people about wouldn't it be a good idea if they had a newspaper that someone could really put forth his beliefs. Like there were, you know, people that are paid to write editorials, and sometimes they write good ones and sometimes they write bad ones. They write good ones when they really believe in something, and they write bad ones when they don't. But even an average person, when they really believe in something, they can write good about it. And so anyway, this was something I was thinking about. Then I heard about Doug Baker publishing what was then called Notes from the Underground. I called him up. I happened to see a copy. I called him up and volunteered my services. It was then just an SNU paper. And the first thing I did was redesign the masthead for him. And later, when summer came, most of the kids that were going to school at SNU left, and he wanted to publish it during the summer, and he asked me if I'd help him, and I said, yeah. And I started working on it a little more that summer. Then finally, he had a lot of personal problems and had to quit the paper, and I became editor. And this is the fall of '67. And that lasted up until the fall of '70 when I quit.
Why did you quit?
I was hassled about this trial and just a million other things, and I was sick of Dallas. I was trying to get out of Dallas even then. And getting tired of it.
Do you think that the revolution is going to be an evolution of consciousness, or is there actually going to be a political overthrow of the government in the next few years? What do you see along the lines that it's going now? projected?
Well, I don't know. I can't, predict the future. One thing I do know, either the government is going to change in order to exist, or the people are just going to go change the government. Because, that's inevitable. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen.
Do you consider yourself a revolutionary, or a journalist, or a revolutionary journalist, or what? What is your place in this?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. I hate to pin labels,
right.
On anyone, especially myself. Yeah, I'm a revolutionary. I'm also a journalist. I'm a lot of things.
But you're a revolutionary more because of your lifestyle and your beliefs rather than any overt political actions that you engage in, would you say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a revolutionary because of being a newsman. I've seen so much of this stuff that it's changed my mind. It's made me a revolutionary. Not because I decided I wanted to be a revolutionary, but because I was changed by, America today, by television, by the things I've seen, by Nixon and Johnson and Eisenhower and the rest of those assholes. I don't think you can get a fair trial in America. I mean, I've given up on fair trials. There's no such thing. I think if we had presented it as for what it was, and showed the nature of the case, not just defending myself, but actually pointing out that it was the police that started the whole thing to begin with. The fact that this is more of the harassment of the type which I've received for the past 3 years. If we could point out the fact that this is happening all over the country, I think that would have an effect, and perhaps I would get acquitted because of this too. But as for fair trial, I don't think there's any such thing.
What was the incident that started the Lee Park massacre, and in what way were you involved?
Well, there were some kids swimming in the creek over there. They had been chased out before by some police. Some more went in. I think it went in after a frisbee or something. So a squad car had pulled up on the grass on that side of the street and was hassling these kids. So a group came over to see what was going on, and another one drove up. This one was one of the station wagons. And the next thing anyone knew, this third police car had pulled up over the median stripe as cop came out with a shotgun and, pointed it at the crowd. And then everyone ran, and then bottles started being thrown, and the more cops came in, and they started, just grabbing anyone they could find. And, then it just built from there.
At what point did you become involved?
Well, I wasn't involved any more than anyone else was involved. I was arrested right toward the beginning. There were some cops in the street, and they came around a police car and pointed up right at me, came up the hill, and busted me. And I saw them coming. I knew who they were coming after. And someone, as a matter of fact, said, "Run." I said, "Hey, man, they know who I am," And I was about 30 feet up from the street, and they grabbed me and beat me to the ground. Next thing I remember is just, trying to breathe. I couldn't breathe. They were choking me. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground. I was trying to breathe. They had a chokehold on me, and they put me in a squad car. And I looked back, and here came a bottle out of the crowd and just smashed the back windshield. Made me feel pretty good. And then I was put in a paddy wagon, and that's it.
Where did they take you?
Well, I was down, they took me to the corner of McKinney and Hall Street. There was another kid that was in the back of the paddy wagon with me, and we just sat there for a couple hours. They didn't do anything. It was like they were waiting for someone to tell them what to do. If the other kid hadn't had a number on him, we would have really been in bad shape.
What were you charged with, and they finally got you downtown?
The original charge was investigating of inciting a riot, and they had a hard time even figuring out what that was. It spent, you know, they spent a couple hours pouring through city ordinances and pouring through state laws trying to find a charge to book me with. And originally they came up with that one, and I was let out on a writ, and then, you know, a few days later they decided to change it to a felony, interfering with a police officer during a civil disorder.
You were recently acquitted of pornography charges in the Supreme Court. Can you tell us about that case?
Yeah, well, that stemmed from a couple raids we had on the notes office back in the fall of 1969. What happened was we ran a documentary about the filmmaking business in Dallas. You know, Dallas is the third largest film center, right? Well, it's mostly like pornographic movies, if not actually pornographic, at least sexploitation films. And we did a story on these sexploitation films. We ran some stills. And one of the stills we ran, well, it said in the search warrant, quote, "a male caressing the nude breasts of a female," end quote. And this still, this movie still, which was actually displayed on the outside of movie theaters, that was enough evidence for a search warrant. And they came in, they took everything we had. They took all the old copies of notes, all the exchange papers. They took clothes, furniture, posters. They took our typewriters, our headline setting equipment, all of our checkbooks. They took our telephone, yanked it out of the wall. The daily newspaper said that they took 2 tons of smut.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
like
wow.
afterwards people said, you know, what is this 2 tons of smut? I used to say, it's a life-size statue of Raphael Welch and a German Shepherd. You know. Actually, it wasn't. It was just, you know, our production equipment. They took everything we needed to put out a newspaper. We had to go to federal court just to get our typewriters back. Our lamps, you know, even our checkbook. We never got our telephone back. We had to get a new phone, put up a new deposit, you know, because they yanked it right out of the wall. And they got away with it, too.
What do you believe about women's lib?
I think it's a right-on movement. I think it's probably the most important thing that's happening right now. Women have been put down and fucked over just too long. And I think it's right that they should be treated as humans, not as second-class citizens.
Do you believe that this will be, the success of this movement will mean a men's liberation at the same time?
Well, women's liberation is all about is a male problem. The problem is not with the women, but with the male, and it's up to people like myself to confront our own male chauvinism and try to do something about it. We're sexist in countless ways, and we don't even think about it. We don't even know it. I think perhaps a lot of the feminists are bad rapping movement men more than they should be bad rapping, you know, men outside the movement, which, you know, I don't particularly think that's right, because I think we're further along than they are, for example. But yeah, it's a very important movement.
Do you believe that what percentage of women would like to be liberated, and what percentage are very comfortable being the victims of male chauvinism?
Most women don't even realize what it's all about. They don't realize that they're fucked over. You know, they don't realize that they shouldn't be, you know, on their hands and knees and scrubbing floors and working for their men, you know? Man, this is a new world we're living in, and we just can't, as men, we can't just take women for granted any longer. You know, we've got to work together to solve these problems.
Would you say similar things about gay liberation and this general widespread minority group impetus to become fully human, equals, human, you know, on an equal level with everybody else in spite of minority differences?
Yeah, this is one of the inconsistencies within our system. You know, we say that all men are created equal. Well, that's just not true. because gay people aren't equal, Chicanos aren't equal, women aren't equal, blacks aren't equal. You're only equal as if you're a white, male, Anglo-Saxon Protestant born into a wealthy family with money, then you're equal.
To other people of that position.
Yeah.
You've been convicted of a felony and you'll be sentenced June 11th, and after your sentence you will decide whether or not to appeal, is that right? There were 5 other people busted with you at the same time. Who are these people?
Well, there was only one other that was arrested out of the felony charges out there, and that was Mike Maloney, who was busted for second-degree lynching. He's the one that threw a Coke bottle and hit a cop with it, and then he swam the creek and they swam after him. All the other people that were busted for felony violations were busted later. Were like indicted later and picked up later, or busted, at least a week afterwards and charged with violations stemming from that.
What does a Coke bottle have to do with stringing somebody up?
Well, I don't know. I think first-degree lynching is like when you string someone from a tree. Second, as part of a mob action, and it has something to do with a mob action.
What was the disposal of the cases of the other that were busted at the same time you were charged with felonies?
Well, Mike Maloney has since passed away. He committed suicide, supposedly, in Colorado Springs. He was surrounded by a lot of police, and they said he committed suicide. Keith Heinsohn went to trial. He got 6 years. He's in Huntsville. And Rudy Murley went underground. I went to see him.
What was the purpose of that?
They picked Rudy out to press charges because he was a well-known person, in the park, in the community. His picture was on the cover of Notes, swimming in the creek with a girl on his shoulders who was topless. And I really think this is the reason that they busted Rudy. Also, he had a past record, and they filed habitual criminal charges against him, too, which means that if he was found guilty, he'd go to jail for the rest of his life. It'd be a life sentence. So he went underground. James Grazier and Wayne Easter are the only ones left in town that haven't been to trial. They're supposed to go soon. Wayne, for his part, wasn't even in the park that day. Wayne, like Rudy, is usually in the park and is a well-known figure, and this would be a good guy to make an example of.
Do you feel that you were singled out among the thousands that were at the park that day? Do you feel like you were busted as a, that the police, that the establishment saw this as a good way to bring you down?
Yes and no. I don't think the purpose for busting us was to put us down as individuals, but only to make scapegoats to rationalize the police's behavior. You see, the police came in, all right, they were here by their own words to protect lives and property. But as it turned out, the only lives and property they were protecting was their own. They were protecting their own police cars and their own lives. As soon as they left, the whole incident was over. The whole incident was directed toward them. The more police they sent into the park, the more violence was begat, so to speak. Originally, they sparked it off, just by an illegal arrest, and then by pulling a shotgun on the crowd. And
there seems to be a lot of confusion about the term revolutionary, because for a lot of people it brings an image of, this person that's out to overthrow the government by violent means.
Oh, no, when I hear the word revolutionary, I think of soap. I think of the laundry detergents, you know, revolutionary new laundry detergent. And you can sell things by appealing to revolutionaries. That's how many of us there are now.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Cut it off. That's all I got.
Think of anything else to cover?
What's the situation in the park now? Has the scene changed in a year and a half?
Yeah.
Intervened?
Yeah, I think because of a multitude of factors, it's a rougher crowd that comes to the park now. It's rowdier. This is just, you know, a characteristic of most big city parks now. That's all. It probably may have something to do with the fact that there's a lot more cops here right now, so that peaceful people, you know, don't want trouble. They stay at home. I don't know what the reason is, but it's just a typical of the park scene across America, I think.
Why were you singled out? What led the attention of the police to you in particular? Where were you standing? What were you doing at the time you were busted?
Okay, I was standing back off the street, up on this hill back here, about 30 feet from the street. I was shouting at Haas, who had come down from the bandstand, and he didn't know what was going on, you know, and he was trying to get people to cool it. He was saying things like, you know, we came here in peace, you know, let's not get violent. And he really didn't understand the nature of the violence to begin with, that the crowd wasn't getting violent. They were the recipients of the police violence. They were, at best, trying to defend themselves. It wasn't even that kind of situation. They just wanted the police to get out of there and leave them alone. So I was yelling at Haas, and then these police came, you know, around the car and pointed at me and came up and got me.
Were you calling the pigs names, or were you calling the pigs pigs, or what were you doing? Were you doing anything that made them want you in particular at that moment?
I was doing a lot of yelling like everyone else was. I wasn't doing more than anyone else, far less than anyone else. I think they just knew who I was. And I thought, oh boy, let's get him. We've been after him for a long time.
Do you believe in astrology?
No, I'm a Sagittarius. We don't believe in astrology.
What is your astrological sign?
I'm a asparagus with avocado rising. We sure fucked that one up, didn't we?
Sure
Okay, let's go through that one again. Now you're supposed to have.
Okay. What is your astrological sign?
Okay.
What is your astrological sign?
I'm an asparagus with avocado rising.
Do you believe in astrology?
No, actually, I'm a Sagittarius. We don't believe in astrology. We fucked it up again.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, don't say anything after you say that, because I'm going to make us close them out. So let's try it again, but take care.
Okay, now wait a minute. You ask what my sign is, then you say no, really. Okay.
No, really. Then do you believe?
Don't say anything after you finish.
Okay.
What is your sign? violence has been connected with the propagation of the yippie philosophy of rock and roll, dope, and fucking in the streets. Can you take those elements apart and describe their value to the revolution, the social cultural revolution?
Rock and roll, dope, and fucking in the streets, I think it stands on the record that, you know, it's pretty good.
What's the music doing for the culture?
What's the music doing for the culture?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know.
Is this,
How's that for honesty? I don't know.
Do you see the revolution, the cultural revolution, as being that, or do you see a political revolution in the future? In other words, it's going to be an evolution of consciousness that's going to change the society, or do you see an actual political overthrow coming about?
Well, I think it's very closely related. You know, you really can't separate the new music and the new culture and the revolution. The music now is talking about different values. Music always talks about what's happening at the time, and right now when you hear songs like "Give Peace a Chance" and what's it, Thunderclap Newman, "The Revolution's Here," something like that. This is just a mirror of what's happening, you know, on a broad-based, worldwide level.
What do you see in your future, in your personal crystal ball?
I don't see anything. I don't know.
Just a fog. No plans.
I think it's an awful shitty question. I think it's too personal. And I wouldn't tell you if you're the last person on Earth.
Is that right?
What the fuck right do you have to ask all that shit? Sure, nosy. I don't know. I can't. That's it, I guess. Anything else?
We've run through all the questions.
Can you read lips?
Well, you've been convicted of a felony and you should be sentenced June the 11th. And at that time, you're going to decide whether or not you're going to appeal.
Yeah.
What is the range of sentences that might be imposed upon you?
2 to 10 years.
Do you feel the establishment in this city has been out to get you, so to speak, for a long time, and that this is just the case that had the most best basis to make political capital out of it?
Yeah, definitely. And on all the other times that I've ever been arrested, it's been for something they had to, like, pick for a reason. You know, they had to make up these pornography charges. They had to make up these charges, about selling newspapers. No one really complained. You know, it wasn't a big deal. On this one, neither they made the headlines nor I. It was, a spontaneous big thing that made all the papers and a lot of talk, and it was there to begin with. It was a good vehicle for them to vent their anger on.